Hey guys, my name is Mitsumiyo, and welcome to another episode of Monday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming-related questions, and then I'll give my humble opinion on them. To get the formalities out of the way real quick, if you'd like to submit your own question for an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. The first question for today comes from JP, and it is, do you think that Tachanka needs another rework? He still feels very underwhelming. Well, I definitely would not go as far to say that he needs a top-to-bottom rework. Not only because I don't think that he needs it, but I don't think that Ubisoft would spend the time to actually do something like that. But when we really get down to it, I think Tachanka is close to being a viable operator, but with some small adjustments. Mainly the fact that his weapons really just leave a lot to be desired. Tachanka is a 3 armored character, but unlike a lot of the other 3 armors on defense, he doesn't have access to a higher optic. Now, maybe Ubisoft did this because he felt like his gadget was going to be more powerful than it was, and we'll get to that here in a second. Maybe they thought that he was going to be somewhere along the lines of Maestro, where Maestro is really powerful, doesn't have those higher optics, and they wanted to kind of tone him down. But in reality, as we've kind of seen, he just seems a little lackluster. And so I think that not only by giving him those higher optics on both of his weapons, this would go a long way at making him more enjoyable, but also viable as well. I think on top of that, they also need to realize that slow RPM is always going to be a gigantic weakness in Rainbow Six Siege. You cannot get past that. Higher RPM just means you're more likely to get a headshot. And while yes, it's really cool that his LMG is able to open up different holes in walls, that doesn't make up for the fact that it has this gigantic weakness weighing over it. And so I would love, and I don't know if this is possible, for them to slightly increase its RPM. Now I realize that this would probably require more effort for Ubisoft to do something like this. The reason why they normally do not upgrade weapons this way is that they have to change other things than just the RPM. You have to change the actual audio of the weapon. If you have an audio that is set for 500 RPM, but you bump it up by 100, it's gonna sound and look weird in game. And so that is going to require more from them to actually deliver that kind of a buff. But I think that that would go a significantly long way to make me want to play Tachanka. And then finally, I also wish they would take a look at his gadget. I personally, and I don't know if anyone shares this same criticism, I find his gadget just not fun to use. When you're playing someone like Smoke, the reason why he is so powerful is that you can throw his gadget on a doorway, activate it quickly, and then watch another angle. And that smoke will then watch your back. It will watch your flank. And so you can cover basically 2 angles by yourself. You can't do that as Tachanka because there is that lengthy reload animation and the fact that the nades don't last very long. You pretty much just have to sit there with his gadget in his hands, just continuously launching this in an angle or maybe a couple of angles, and then going through a lengthy reload process. I don't know about you guys, but when I play a FPS game, I usually want to use my primary weapon. I don't want to just sit there with my gadget in my hands for the last couple of seconds. And so what I would much rather have it be is something similar to Smoke, where the fire effect lasts a little bit longer, but you have a few less rounds to work with. Now, they would need to walk a fine line. You wouldn't want this to all of a sudden become overpowered, especially if you are pairing this in combination with a Smoke. If it's the last, 30 seconds and every single angle is locked down because of these 2 operators and you just physically cannot push through without going through one of them, that's going to be frustrating. That could be overpowered. So they would need to fine tune it, but I think that they could try to make this gadget a little less clunky and, in my opinion, more enjoyable to use with a couple of tweaks. In general, though, I do agree with you that Tachanka does feel a bit underwhelming. He's not worthless. He's not a useless character. If played properly, he can provide some benefit to the defensive team, but I definitely think that with some quality of life improvements and with some adjustments, especially with that 1.5 times optic, at least at the bare minimum, he could be a lot more fun to play and just get people more involved with this character. The next question comes from Not Cold, and it is, do you think that Ubisoft should remove casual MMR as it has made casual very sweaty? I've heard that from other content creators / pros that they should remove it and would love to hear your opinion on it. Well, I guess if a bunch of pros and content creators are saying that this should happen, I'm gonna go against the grain and say absolutely not. I understand that it can get very sweaty in casual. If you're just messing around with some friends, but you're going against these Ash players who are wiggle peeking every single corner, pre-firing, it looks like they're trying to compete in Pro League, it can get old fast. Like, I understand that. That's not the environment that you want, and so to have a place where you can chill sounds very appealing. But the idea of removing all ELO or MMR matchmaking from those game modes, I don't think that that's the solution. To give you a good example of this, if you're platinum or higher, so let's say you're better than like basically 90% of the player base in this game, that means that as soon as you completely remove ELO or matchmaking, you're gonna be paired up with people that are brand new or who are, you know, copper, all the way to champion diamond players and everything in between. But because you are that top 10% of the player base, statistically, almost every single one of your games that you're going to be matchmaked into, you're going to be the best player. And so obviously, if you're one of these people, this sounds amazing. You're gonna get aces, 4Ks, you're gonna dominate the competition because statistically, you're gonna be at the top more often than not. But for everyone else that's below you, this sounds awful. This is the reason why matchmaking, especially in like Call of Duty and all these other games, is becoming more popular, is because it's trying to level out the playing field. If you are brand new to Rainbow Six Siege, or if you're just bad, if all of a sudden they make this change and now you're getting dominated even more than you were before, you're not gonna have fun. You're gonna move on to another video game because it's just not going to be enjoyable. This is something that these games and developers have realized, and it's why matchmaking is a thing in these kinds of titles. And so in general, while I've been in your position on numerous occasions, playing with friends, just wanting to have a good time, but everyone we go against just seems like they're trying out for the Pro League, that does get annoying. I don't think that removing all MMR and ELO from the casual playlist is a solution. And honestly, it would just cause more problems than it would solve. The next question comes from Dustin, and it is, are you nervous about the small changes to maps in Year 6 Season 3? I wonder if it will be so little change that it will feel similar to Operation Health with the lack of content unless the operator brings something totally new to the game. Well, you could look at it in more of that negative way, but the hope that I have is that the time that would have been spent developing one reworked map is now going to be allocated to a bunch of them. And so don't expect to have huge sweeping changes on like Consulate or Coastline. I think both of those need some changes. Bank is another one that comes to mind. But some of the objectives that have issues, they could go on in, make some small subtle tweaks, and hopefully improve it for the better. I think that's okay. This is something I believe was inevitable. Because they've already reworked a bunch of the ranked competitive maps, and because for some reason they also have the stance where the casual maps that they rework, like now House and Favela, won't be elevated to a competitive ranked environment. I don't know why they do that. I think that at some point they would have had to gone in and fine-tune some of the maps that didn't need a complete top to bottom rework, but could use some slight adjustments to improve them. And I think that's great. Now, who knows? Maybe we are setting ourselves up for disappointment in a couple of months when they do the big reveal. Maybe it's only a couple of changes here and there, and that by and large, the season does feel very lackluster. But I'm really crossing my fingers that a couple of those problematic objectives on a few of the already solid maps in the game get the attention that they need so that they have no longer those big weaknesses and we can get a lot more variety. That's what I'm really hoping for. The next question comes from the Antnil, and it is, you've never actually worked as a developer or publisher. So is there a part of game development you would like to know more about? Is there an aspect of it that's more interesting or mysterious to you that you'd like to know more about? So honestly, I would like to know just the small things of what goes on day to day and the step-by-step process of how long or what goes involved into making a map or an operator or some content in Rainbow Six Siege. A lot of people, and I think I'm included in this, don't really have a good idea of how long it takes to go from a concept of an operator or whatever idea that it is, all the way to the finished product where that character is finally released. We We just see the finished product. We see the map, we see the changes, but we don't know what it took to get there. And so I would love if developers would actually kind of lay out what it takes, how many developers it switches hands to. It goes from concept to the artist to, game design. What is that process like? If we had a better idea of what that took, I think people would appreciate kind of more of the effort that goes into creating the games that we love. Another thing I would love to learn more about is the little details and how they work around problems to implement something into the game. So for like Aruni, for example, or Amaro would probably be even better, is what did it take to create an operator like that who flies through a window at Mach 5. We've never had anyone like that in Rainbow Six Siege. Did they have to do something in the engine to make that possible? Was it just some kind of tricks, or was it really easy to make that kind of a character? I would love to know that kind of a stuff. Overall, though, I think the biggest thing really just comes down to what goes into making the content that we all love. What is the day-to-day? What does it take to get from start to finish? I think that is really fascinating. But yeah, guys, that has been it for today's episode of Monday Mailbox. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about what we discussed in today's video. Do you think that Tachanka needs some reworking? Do you think that he's in a good place right now? Let me know your guys' thoughts down below. As always, if you'd like to submit your own question for an upcoming episode, and please do, this entire series revolves around these kinds of questions. Let me know by leaving a comment down below or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. But until next time, guys, have a good one and take it easy.